Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. The bullet ripped through Deadpool's shoulder, sending a spray of blood into the air. He didn't flinch, didn't wince, just kept moving forward with his usual bravado, ignoring the torrent of destruction being thrown his way. A few more shots landed, tearing into his chest and side. No big deal. His healing factor would take care of it, as always. Behind him, the AI soldiers continued their relentless assault, their laser-like precision aiming to take him down. But Deadpool didn't care. He was Wade Wilson, the Merce with a mouth, and he had a mission to complete. "Come on, fellas, can't you aim for something that actually hurts?" he called out, spinning his swords in a flashy display. "I am starting to think you guys are programmed to miss on purpose." He jumped into the fray, slicing through the first soldier with ease. Sparks flew as metal limbs hit the ground, and Deadpool's laugh echoed through the chaos. These AI soldiers were no match for him. Until they were. A sudden wave of energy surged through the battlefield, stopping Deadpool in his tracks. He looked around, confused, his instincts flaring up as something shifted in the air. It wasn't the usual kind of danger he faced. A different kind of power had just entered the scene. Then he saw her, Wanda Maximoff, Scarlet Witch. "Wanda, what a pleasant surprise," Deadpool called out with a grin. "Here to join the party. I saved you a few bots to destroy. They're not much, but they make a great stress reliever." Wanda ignored his banter, her hands glowing with red energy as she floated down toward him. Her expression was tense, focused, like she was fighting off something far more dangerous than Deadpool's humor. "We need to stop them. Wade, these AIs are more than just soldiers. They reconnected to something bigger," Wanda warned, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "Bigger, huh? How much bigger are we talking? Like world domination bigger, or oh crap, I need to find a new taco truck bigger?" "Focus," she snapped, her eyes narrowing. Deadpool shrugged, feigning boredom. Fine, let's save the world again. But after this, I am cashing in on that taco." Wanda raised her hands and a surge of red magic shot forward, dismantling the remaining eye soldiers in one swift motion. Deadpool watched, slightly impressed but unwilling to let it show. Her powers always seemed a bit too serious for his taste. He preferred the messy kind of destruction, the kind you could laugh about later. But something was off this time. As Wanda's magic swept through the air, Deadpool felt a strange tingling sensation in his body, like his cells were trying to scream at him. His vision blurred for a moment, and then just like that it passed. "Ha! Weird," Deadpool muttered, rubbing his eyes. He checked his shoulder, expecting to see the bullet wounds healing over, like they always did, but nothing. The gash was still there, blood still dripping down his arm. Panic wasn't in his nature, but confusion. Yeah, that was creeping in fast. "Hey, Wanda, you happen to hit me with any of that magic juju Deadpool asked, keeping his tone light. He didn't want to show how unnerved he was, not yet anyway. Wanda turned, her brow furrowed. "What are you talking about?" Deadpool pointed to his still bleeding wound. "This normally I am good as new by now. But I gotta say this one's sticking around like an unwelcome ex." Her eyes widened, and for a moment, Deadpool saw real concern flash across her face. That wasn't a good sign. Wanda didn't do concern. She did control calculation. Precision concern meant something had gone very wrong. "I didn't chewy," Wanda began, but then stopped herself. Her eyes glowed faintly as she scanned Deadpool with her magic. "There's someone there." "No kidding," Deadpool said, trying to keep his cool. "I thought we had a deal, Wanda. I get shot, stabbed, blown up, and you magic it all better. This isn't true part of the deal." "I didn't mean to," she started again. But this time, her voice trailed off, her gaze fixed on his wound. "Something in my magic must have interfered with your healing factor. It's it's fading." Deadpool blinked. "Wait, what fading? As in going away, like for good?" Wanda's silence was answer enough. A cold sweat broke out on the back of Deadpool's head. This was bad. This was really, really bad. He could feel it. Now the slow ebb of his power, like his body was a leaky boat and all the water was slowly draining out. Okay, no big deal," Deadpool said, talking more to himself than to Wanda. "We just fix it, right? You snap your fingers, do some of that reality-bending mumbo-jumbo, and I am back to being the unkillable Merce with a mouth." Wanda shook her head. "It's not that simple. My magic, when it alters reality, it's not always something I can just revert. This might take time. I'll have to figure out how it happened first." "How much time?" Deadpool asked, forcing a grin that felt a little too tight. Wanda hesitated. I don't. There was a long pause. Deadpool looked down at his wound, still bleeding sluggishly. For the first time in a long time, he felt something close to fear creeping up his spine. Let me get this straight, Deadpool said, his voice deceptively casual, Yuri saying, I might actually die. Wanda met his gaze, her expression serious. If we can find a way to reverse it. Yeah. You have about 48 hours before your body gives out completely. 48 hours. 2 days. Deadpool couldn't or even process the idea. He'd have been living for so long with the certainty that he'd die, that no matter how bad things got, his body would always stitch itself back together. Now that safety net was gone, and he was free falling into a world where death was real. Well, but Deadpool said after a long beat, clapping his hands together. Guess we better get cracking then. I am not planning on checking out just yet. Got too many chimichangas left to eat. Wanda nodded, but there was still worry in her eyes. I'll do everything I can to fix this. I know you will, witchy poo, Deadpool replied, his usual smirk returning. Now what's the plan? Please tell me it involves time travel. I love time travel, big fan of that whole wibbly-wobbly time-wimey stuff. Wanda's eyes glimmered with the faintest hint of amusement. Actually, yes. We need to consult a time mate. Deadpool, grin widened. Oh, baby, you just said the magic word. The journey to the time marriage realm was anything but straightforward. Deadpool had expected some kind of magical portal to whisk him away in a swirl of glittering light. Instead, he and Wanda found themselves trudging through a desolate wasteland, the sky a constant swirl of dark clouds, and the ground littered with jagged rocks and shattered remnants of forgotten civilization. Remind me again why all magical realms have to look like something out of a death metal album cover, Deadpool muttered, sidestepping a particularly large boulder. Wanda, walking beside him, was focused. This isn't just any magical realm. The time mage lives in a place where time and reality bleed together. It's as unstable. Unstable, like my last relationship, or unstable like, oops, we just stepped on a butterfly and now dinosaurs are ruling the earth. Both. Great. Sounds like my kind of place. They continued in silence for a while. Wanda said red magic, occasionally flickering around them, protecting them from the worst of the realm, sound effect. Every so often, Deadpool would glance down at his arm, watching the wound that still hadn't healed. The sight made his stomach twist in ways he wasn't used to. Mortality wasn't supposed to be his problem. It was supposed to be everyone else. How much farther to this time mage of yours? Deadpool asked, trying to push away the uncomfortable thought. Not far, Wanda replied, her gaze fixed ahead, but be prepared. He's sorry, difficult. Oh, please, Deadpool scoffed, difficult. Have you met me? I define difficult. I am the guy who brings nachos to a sword fight. What's send this guy gonna do? Make us do math. Wanda didn't answer. That was never a good sign. As they crested a ridge, Deadpool's eyes widened. Below them lay a sprawling city of clocks and gears, massive timepieces floating in midair, their hands spinning at impossible speed. The entire place was suspended in a shimmering bubble of energy, the boundaries of which seemed to pulse with every tick and tock of the clock. Okay, I take it back, Deadpool said, genuinely impressed. That's pretty cool. Wanda led the way down into the city, her magic guiding them through the shifting streets, where time seemed to loop and twist. Deadpool watched as people flickered in and out of existence, walking backward through moments only to suddenly fast forward again. It was dizzying. Finally, they arrived at a massive spiraling tower in the center of the city, the Time Mage Sanctuary. This is it, Wanda said, her voice quiet but firm. Deadpool took a deep breath.
All right, let's go meet the guy who's not gonna save my bacon.
They entered the tower, climbing a seemingly endless staircase until they reached a grand chamber at the top. In the center of the room sat Eldarin, the Time Mage. He was an ageless figure, his robes shimmering with the colors of shifting time. His eyes glowing faintly with the knowledge of centuries met Deadpool, zealous with an unsettling calm. Wade Wilson, Eldarin said in a voice that sounded like it had echoed through millennia. You seek to undo the irreversible. Deadpool blinked. Yeah, that also tacos, but one thing at a time. Wanda stepped forward. Eldarin's healing factor has been affected by my magic. We need to reverse it before his time runs out. Eldoran nodded slowly, his eyes narrowing as he examined Deadpool. The magic has altered not just his body, but his very essence. Reversing it will not be simple. Deadpool sighed. Of course it won. TB, why is nothing ever simple just once? ID like a problem that can be solved with a big red button. The only way to undo this, Eldoran continued, ignoring Deadpool's some comment, is to travel back to the moment when Wade first gained his healing abilities. The magic must be corrected at the source. Deadpool says, hard skip the beat. Wait, you mean back to Weapon X? Eldoran nodded. Back to the moment your life was forever altered. Wanda glanced at Deadpool, her eyes questioning this was a big ask. Going back to Weapon X wasn't just about reversing a spell, it was about reliving the worst moment of Deadpool's cell life. The moment that had broken him and rebuilt him into something unrecognizable. Deadpool swallowed hard, the usual jokes and bravado nowhere to be found. All right, he said quietly, let's do it. Deadpool clenched his fists as Eldoran conjured a swirling portal in the air before them. It pulsed with the energy of time itself, casting eerie shadows across the room. Wade had faced plenty of terrifying things in his life, monsters, assassins, galactic overlords, but this, going back to the place that had stripped him of his humanity, that was different. Weapon X wasn't just a physical location. It was a crucible of pain and loss. It had turned him into the man he was now, for better or worse. Wanda stood beside him, her gaze locked on the portal. We only have one shot at this, she said quietly. The moment we enter, time will try to resist us. You have to stay focused. Deadpool forced a grin, though it felt hollow-focused. Please. Focus is my middle name, actually. No, that's not true, but it's set on the list of things I pretend to have. Wanda didn't respond to the joke. She seemed to understand that behind his humor was something raw, something he wasn't ready to face. Without another word, she stepped into the portal, and after a beat, Deadpool followed. The world around them warped and stretched as they were pulled through the fabric of time. Colors bled into one another, and voices from the past echoed in the distance, too distorted to understand. Deadpool felt his stomach lurch as reality twisted around them, and then with a sudden jolt, they landed hard on solid ground. Deadpool blinked, taking in the familiar surroundings with a cold sense of dread. They stood in the middle of a dark, sterile hallway. The unmistakable scent of antiseptic and metal filled the air, and the low hum of machinery buzzed in the distance. Weapon X! His mouth went dry as he glanced down the hallway. The memories came flooding back, days, weeks, months of agony in this very place. Strapped to a table, his flesh torn apart and rebuilt over and over again. They had turned him into something less than human, a weapon. This is it, Deadpool muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. Wanda placed a hand on his arm, her touch grounding him. We'll fix this. Wade, you want to have to go through it again. He forced the nod. Yeah, let's get this over with. They moved cautiously down the hall, the faint echoes of distant screams sending chills up Deadpool's spine. He had never been one for reflection, but walking these halls again was like walking through a graveyard of his own mind. Every door they passed held a ghost, a memory of the man he used to be before everything had been taken from him. They reached the operating room where it had all begun. The door was slightly ajar, and beyond it, Deadpool could hear the faint hum of machinery. His heart pounded in his chest as he pushed the door open, revealing the sterile cold room where his transformation had taken place. Inside, a group of scientists surrounded the surgical table. Their faces were shadowed, but Deadpool recognized the cold, detached manner in which they moved. The lead scientist, a man Deadpool had once fantasized about killing more times than he could count, stood at the head of the table, barking orders. On the table lay a version of Deadpool. He barely recognized a man still whole, still broken in all the wrong ways, but not yet the monster they would make him. It was surreal watching himself about to undergo the process that would turn him into what he was now. The man on the table was screaming, thrashing against his restraints as they prepared to inject him with the serum that would give him his healing factor. We need to act quickly, Wanda whispered, her eyes fixed on the scene. If we disrupt this moment too much, it could have consequences for both the past and the future. No pressure, right? Deadpool muttered, but his hands were trembling. He was about to watch himself die, at least, the version of himself that had once been whole. The idea of tampering with this moment, of undoing it, sent a wave of nausea through him. But he had no choice. If they didn't fix this, he was dead in 48 hours. Wanda raised her hands, red energy swirling around her fingers. She muttered an incantation under her breath, and the air around them shimmered as time began to slow. The scientists moved in slow motion, their voices reduced to a dull hum. The Deadpool on the table stopped thrashing, his body frozen in the moment just before the serum was injected. "This is it," Wanda said, her voice tight with concentration. "I need to adjust the flow of magic right at the point your healing factor is activated." Deadpool nodded, but his attention was fixed on the version of himself lying on the table. The man was broken, yes, but he was also desperate. Desperate to survive. Desperate to become something more than the cancer-ridden shell he had been. Watching this moment unfold was like peeling away the layers of a wound that had never really healed. Wanda stepped closer to the table, her hands hovering above the frozen version of Deadpool. Red energy crackled in the air as she concentrated, her magic probing the very essence of the moment when the serum would take effect. But something was wrong. Deadpool felt it before he saw it, a cold, creeping sensation that slithered up his spine. The air around them grew heavy thick, with a dark energy that didn't belong. He turned his eyes, narrowing as a shadowy figure materialized at the edge of the room. It was unlike anything Deadpool had ever seen, a swirling mass of darkness and teeth, its form constantly shifting and writhing. Wanda," Deadpool called out, his voice sharp with warning. "We've got company." Wanda looked up, her eyes widening in alarm as she saw the creature. "That's not possible. Time doesn't have a guardian here." "Tell that to the thing that looks like it wants to eat us," Deadpool shot back, drawing his sword. The creature hissed, its eyes glowing with malevolent intent. It lunged toward them, moving with terrifying speed. Deadpool barely had time to react before it was on him, its claws slashing through the air. He blocked the first strike with his swords, but the force of the blow sent him staggering back. "Wanda, a little help here," Deadpool shouted, dodging another strike. Wanda raised her hands, sending a bolt of red energy toward the creature. The magic hit it square in the chest, but instead of disintegrating, the creature absorbed the energy, growing larger and more menacing with each passing second. "It's hitting off my magic," Wanda said, her voice tight with frustration. "Great, that's just great." Deadpool gritted his teeth as he slashed at the creature, but every strike seemed to pass through it like it was made of smoke. "So what's Cyclan be?" Wanda's eyes darted to the frozen version of Deadpool on the table. "I need more time. Keep it busy." "Oh, sure, no problem. I'll just ask it politely to hold off on eating us until you're redone." Deadpool quicked, his heart racing, as the creature lunged at him again. The battle raged on, the creature growing more aggressive with every passing second. Deadpool fought with everything he had, but his body was weakening. Without his healing factor working properly, every hit he took was another step closer to the end. He could feel the exhaustion settling in, his movement slowing as his muscles screamed in protest. This was it. If Wanda didn't fix the spell soon, he was done for. Just as the creature was about to strike again, Wanda let out a sharp cry. Her hands flared with red energy as she completed the spell, sending a wave of magic rippling through the room. The frozen version of Deadpool on the table glowed with a faint golden light, and for a moment everything went still. The creature let out an enraged screech as it was blasted back by the force of the magic. It writhed in the air, its form flickering and distorting before it finally dissipated into nothingness. Deadpool collapsed to the floor, gasping for breath. His body ached, his muscles trembling with exhaustion. But something was different. He could feel it, the familiar sensation of his healing factor kicking back in. The wounds he had taken during the fight began to stitch themselves together, the pain slowly fading away. Wanda knelt beside him, her face pale but determined. "It's done. Your healing factor, ... Dead tough back." Deadpool let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. Guess that means I am not dying after all. Shame I had this whole tragic hero speech planned out and everything. Wanda smiled faintly, though there was still a hint of worry in her eyes. "Let's get out of here." They stood together, the air around them still shimmering with the remnants of the magic. Deadpool took one last glance at the frozen version of himself on the table. It was strange, knowing that he had just undone the very thing that had made him who he was. But maybe that wasn't such a bad thing. Maybe it was time to stop being the man-weapon X had created. As they stepped through the portal back to the present, Deadpool couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. For the first time in a long time, he felt like he had a future one that wasn't written in blood and violence. The portal closed behind them, and the world snapped back into focus. They were standing in the middle of a quiet field, far away from the horrors of Weapon X. Deadpool glanced at Wanda, his usual smirk returning. So what now? We grab tacos and pretend none of that ever happened. Wanda shook her head, but there was a smile on her lips. Maybe. But first, I think we both need a break. Speak for yourself. I am ready to go. Another round, Deadpool replied, though the exhaustion in his voice betrayed him. Wanda gave him a knowing look. You can pretend all you want, Wade, but I know this took a lot out of you. Deadpool shrugged, but he didn't try to argue. She was right, of course. Facing his past, like that ... it had been harder than he wanted to admit, but he had come out the other side, and that was something. As they walked away from the field, Deadpool couldn't help but feel a strange sense of peace. He had been given a second chance, and maybe he wouldn't waste it. At least not right away.